I was halfway into my jacket when Chloe dropped the bombshell. Our suitcases stood ready by the door, packed for the Caribbean weekend we'd been planning for months. Or rather, the weekend she'd been planning, and I'd rearranged surgeries to accommodate. "I need a month to decide if you're worth my investment," she said coldly. I froze, my hand still on the sleeve of my jacket. "Excuse me? You heard me?" She crossed her arms, her expensive watch catching the light. "A month to evaluate whether this relationship is worth continuing." I slowly took off my jacket and placed it on the chair. The emergency call from the hospital still echoed in my mind. A 14-year-old boy who needed immediate surgery. A surgery only I could perform. "Let me get this straight," I said calmly, "because I have to save a child's life. You need a month to decide if I'm worth being with?" "It's not just today, David." Her voice was crisp, businesslike. "It's the pattern. 3 years of canceled plans. 3 years of choosing patience over us. The hospital always comes first. I'd been with Chloe for 3 years. In that time, I'd saved dozens of lives and missed dozens of dinners. I'd performed groundbreaking surgeries and skipped anniversary celebrations. And through it all, I'd never realized that Chloe was keeping score. "A month," I repeated. "Yes, consider it a trial separation." She straightened her designer blouse. "Your career choices aren't providing the lifestyle returns I expected from this relationship." I looked at her then, the perfect hair, the flawless makeup, the cold calculation in her eyes. In our luxury apartment with its $1,000,000 view, I suddenly saw Chloe clearly for the first time. She wasn't evaluating our love. She was assessing my market value. "The hospital called," I said simply. 14-year-old boy. Congenital heart defect that suddenly deteriorated. If I don't operate, he dies tonight. There are other surgeons, David. Not for this procedure, not at such short notice. There's always another emergency, isn't there? She sighed dramatically, checking her watch. We were supposed to be sipping margaritas on the beach by sunset. And Tommy Williams is supposed to live past his 15th birthday. Her eyes narrowed. Don't make me the villain here. I've supported your career for years, but relationships need maintenance too. I've run the numbers, David. We've spent exactly 12 full days together in the past 3 months. Of course she'd run the numbers. Everything was quantifiable to Chloe. So you need a month, I said, picking up my medical bag, to decide if I'm worth keeping around. Yes. She seemed almost relieved that I understood her corporate approach to love. It's a reasonable time frame for assessment. I should have been angry, should have shouted, protested, begged her to see that saving lives wasn't just a career choice, but the core of who I was. Instead, a strange calm settled over me. Okay, I said, heading for the door. Take your time. The look of surprise on her face was worth more than any Caribbean sunset. That's it? You're not going to fight for us? Her perfect composure cracked just slightly. I paused at the doorway. There's a boy who needs me to fight for him right now. And honestly, Chloe, anyone who needs a month to decide if I'm worth loving already has their answer. The door closed behind me with a soft click that somehow felt more final than any slam could have. The hospital corridors welcomed me with their familiar antiseptic smell and fluorescent lighting. As I scrubbed in, the weight of Chloe's ultimatum faded against the more immediate pressure of saving Tommy Williams' life. Cutting it close, aren't you, Dr. Hart? Remarked Vanessa, my favorite scrub nurse, as she helped me gown up. Had to cancel some plans, I said vaguely. Caribbean with the Ice Queen? Vanessa had never hidden her dislike for Chloe, especially after meeting her at last year's hospital gala, where Chloe had spent the evening networking with wealthy board members while barely acknowledging the nursing staff. You could say those plans are on indefinite hold. Vanessa raised an eyebrow but said nothing more as we entered the operating room, where my team was prepped and waiting. On the table lay Tommy Williams, already intubated and prepped for surgery, his chest bare and vulnerable under the harsh lights. Good evening, everyone, I said, my voice steady and focused. We have a complex repair of a tetralogy of Fallot with pulmonary atresia. Tommy here has developed progressive right ventricular failure, despite previous palliative surgeries. Let's give him a heart that can take him through high school, college, and beyond. Scalpel, please. The familiar weight of the instrument in my hand centered me. This was where I belonged. This was what mattered. 12 hours. That's how long we fought for Tommy's life. 12 hours of meticulous work, of moments where his pressure dropped dangerously, of adjustments in decisions that would determine whether a family kept their son or lost him forever. 12 hours where not once did I think about beaches or ultimatums or cost-benefit analyses of relationships. When I finally stepped out of the OR, exhausted but triumphant, Tommy's parents were waiting in the consultation room, clutching each other's hands, their faces etched with the special terror only parents of critically ill children know. Dr. Hart, Mrs. Williams stood immediately, her husband rising beside her like they were connected by invisible string. How is he? Please tell me he's... Tommy made it through surgery, I said, allowing myself a small smile. The repair was complex but successful. He's strong and he fought hard. Mrs. Williams collapsed against her husband, sobbing. Mr. Williams looked at me over his wife's shoulder, his eyes filled with tears. Thank you, he mouthed silently. This moment, this was the return on investment that Chloe would never understand. I explained Tommy's recovery process to his parents, answered their questions, and assured them they could see him soon in the pediatric ICU. As I turned to leave, Mrs. Williams suddenly caught my arm. Dr. Hart, you were supposed to be somewhere else tonight, weren't you? At my surprised look, she explained, the nurse mentioned you came in for an emergency on your day off, that you had vacation plans. It was nothing important, I said honestly. It was important to us, she said simply, and hugged me. I walked out of that consultation room changed in some fundamental way I couldn't yet articulate. My pager buzzed. A text from Chloe. Hope surgery went well. Took a solo flight to Barbados. We'll be at the Four Seasons for the week if you can get away. Consider it the start of our trial separation. I stared at the message for a long moment, then slipped the pager back into my pocket without replying. There in the quiet hallway of the hospital, with the weight of a successful surgery still on my shoulders and the gratitude of the Williams family warming something long cold inside me, I realized Chloe had done me a favor. She had given me a month, but I wouldn't need nearly that long to know my own answer. The days that followed took on a strange, liberating rhythm. Without Chloe's social calendar dictating my rare free hours, I found myself rediscovering parts of my life I'd neglected. I reconnected with old medical school friends, spent evenings mentoring surgical residents, and even made it to my nephew's baseball game, something I'd promised but repeatedly failed to do for months. Tommy Williams' recovery became a personal mission. I visited him daily, watching with satisfaction as color returned to his cheeks and strength to his voice. His room became decorated with get-well cards and the action figures his friends brought. One afternoon, I arrived to find him trying to explain the complexities of some video game to his grandmother, who nodded with endearing confusion. Dr. Hart, he called when he saw me. Mom said you canceled a vacation to do my surgery. Is that true? I glanced at Mrs. Williams, who shrugged apologetically. Just doing my job, Tommy. Was it somewhere cool? Like Disney or something? The Caribbean, I admitted, checking his incision site and cardiac monitors. His eyes widened. Whoa, with your girlfriend and everything? Fiancé, I corrected automatically, though the word suddenly felt foreign on my tongue. That's even worse. She must be super mad. I couldn't help but laugh at his teenage directness. She's taking some time to think about things. Tommy's face turned serious beyond his years. Well, I'm glad you were here instead of there. Otherwise, I might be, you know. He drew his finger across his throat dramatically. Tommy, his mother scolded, but I was laughing again. Glad I was here too, kid. Later that week, I received a call from an unexpected source. Bernard Livingston, the hospital's chief of surgery, asking me to come to his office at my convenience. Bernard was a surgical legend in his 60s, with piercing blue eyes and a reputation for directness that terrified residents but earned the respect of everyone else. David, he said when I entered, gesturing for me to sit. The Williams case. Impressive work. Thank you, sir. I understand you came in on your day off. Canceled personal plans. I shifted uncomfortably. It was the right call. Bernard leaned back in his chair, studying me. The board has been discussing the creation of a new position, Director of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery, a chance to build a specialized team, expand our capabilities. Your name has come up repeatedly. I blinked in surprise. I'm honored, but there are more experienced surgeons. Experience is in everything. We need someone with technical skill, judgment, and the right priorities. He fixed me with those famous blue eyes. Someone who cancels Caribbean vacations to save a teenager with a bad heart. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Probably Chloe, who had been sending increasingly irritated messages about my lack of communication during her thinking period. I ignored it. I'd like to be considered, I said firmly. Bernard nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. Good, because I've already advocated for you. The salary bump won't make you rich, and the hours will be worse, but I think you're the right man for the job. As I left his office, my phone buzzed again. This time I checked it, but it wasn't Chloe. It was a text from my sister. Mom's birthday dinner tonight, 7 p.m. Please tell me you're coming this year. For the past 2 years, I'd missed my mother's birthday celebrations, once due to an emergency surgery, once because Chloe had orchestrated a business dinner with potential clients she wanted to impress. Both times I'd sent expensive gifts as penance. Both times my mother had assured me she understood. With that particular smile, Mother's perfect to mask disappointment. I texted back immediately. Wouldn't miss it. See you at 7. I arrived at my parents' modest suburban home with a bouquet of my mother's favorite lilies and a bottle of the scotch my father pretended not to enjoy. The familiar chaos of family dinner enveloped me immediately. My sister's twins racing through the house, my brother arguing politics with my father, my mother pretending to be upset about the kitchen crowding while secretly loving every minute of it. David, Mom exclaimed, embracing me tightly. You made it. Happy birthday, Mom, I said, kissing her cheek and presenting the flowers. These are beautiful. But you didn't need to bring anything. Having you here is the gift. She looked me over with a mother's critical eye. You look tired. Are you sleeping enough? Where's Chloe? The questions came rapid fire in typical mom fashion. Chloe's in Barbados, I said, helping her arrange the lilies in a vase. On her own. My mother's hand stilled. Is everything all right between you two? I considered deflecting, giving the easy answer that would prevent concerned looks and prying questions. But something about being in my childhood home, with its worn furniture and walls covered in family photos, made honesty feel essential. No, I admitted. She's taking a month to decide if I'm worth staying with. Mom's eyes widened. Because of your work? The emergency surgery? That was the trigger, but it's been building. She says I'm not profitable enough for her. My mother's expression darkened in a way I rarely saw. Profitable? Did she actually use that word? She sees everything through an investment lens, relationships included. Mom shook her head, returning to her flower arranging with unnecessary vigor. You know, when your father was finishing his residency in internal medicine, we barely saw each other. He missed dinners, birthdays, our first anniversary. We were so poor I had to work double shifts as a nurse to make rent. I didn't know that, I said, surprised. My parents rarely talked about those early struggles. It was hard, she admitted, but not once did I question if he was worth it. The man was saving lives for heaven's sake. She fixed me with a pointed look. Anyone who needs a spreadsheet to decide if they love you doesn't deserve you, David. The words hit me with unexpected force, echoing my own thoughts, but somehow more powerful coming from her. Now, she continued briskly, take these drinks to the living room while I finish the lasagna, and be prepared for your sister to interrogate you mercilessly about your love life. She's been practicing her concerned face all evening. Dinner was a boisterous affair, filled with stories, laughter, and the comfortable bickering of a family that genuinely enjoyed each other's company. I found myself relaxing in a way I hadn't in months, maybe years. There were no appearances to maintain, no networking to navigate, no careful conversational chess to play. Just family, food, and surprising myself by laughing until my sides hurt at my brother's ridiculous impressions of his law firm partners. As we were having cake, my phone lit up with Chloe's face. Everyone at the table noticed. Aren't you going to get that? My father asked. I silenced the phone and returned it to my pocket. No, tonight is about Mom. My mother's smile was worth more than any business deal Chloe had ever closed. Later, as I was helping clean up, my sister cornered me in the kitchen. "So, trouble in paradise with the Ice Queen?" she asked, loading plates into the dishwasher. "Don't call her that," I said automatically, though without much conviction. "Sorry, but anyone who needs a month-long assessment period to decide if my brother is worthy of her precious time gets an Ice Queen designation." She handed me a plate to dry. "You know what's crazy? I've known you your entire life, and not once have you ever looked truly happy with her." "Sarah, I'm serious, David. You get this tight expression whenever she calls, like you're bracing for a performance review." I remained silent, methodically drying the dishes. "Remember Amy from med school?" she continued. "You used to light up just talking about her." Whatever happened there anyway? Amy Winters. The name triggered a cascade of memories, intense study sessions that turned into deep conversations about everything from medical ethics to favorite childhood movies. The way her eyes crinkled when she laughed, how she'd bring me coffee during overnight shifts, even when she was exhausted herself. "She took a pediatric oncology fellowship in Seattle," I said quietly. "We tried long distance for a while, but..." "But what?" I put down the dish towel. "Chloe happened. I met her at a hospital fundraiser. She was intelligent, ambitious, beautiful. Amy and I were already struggling with the distance, and Chloe was..." "Here," Sarah's expression softened. "Have you ever wondered if you made the right choice?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed again, this time with a text from Vanessa, the scrub nurse. "Tommy Williams asking for you. Nothing urgent, but thought you'd want to know." "I need to go," I said, suddenly eager to escape my sister's too perceptive questions. "Hospital." Sarah sighed but gave me a quick hug. "Think about what I said, okay? And don't settle for someone who needs an assessment period to recognize what everyone else sees clearly, that you're worth everything." Her words followed me all the way to the hospital. Tommy was sitting up in bed when I arrived, playing a handheld video game with intense concentration. His mother dozed in the visitor's chair beside him. "Hey, champ," I said quietly. "Nurse Vanessa said you were asking for me?" He looked up, his face brightening. "Dr. Hart, I didn't think you'd actually come. Isn't it super late?" I checked my watch. Just past 9 p.m. "Not that late. Everything okay?" He nodded, then glanced at his sleeping mother before motioning me closer. "I wanted to ask you something private," he whispered. I pulled up a chair. "What's on your mind?" "Is your heart okay?" he asked, his expression deadly serious. The question caught me off guard. "My heart? Yes, it's fine. Why do you ask?" "Because you're a heart doctor who fixed my heart, but you seem kind of sad sometimes." His matter-of-fact delivery made me suppress a smile. "My dad says you can have a broken heart even when the actual organ is working right, like emotionally broken, out of the mouths of babes." "That's pretty insightful, Tommy. Is it because of your fiancé, the one who's mad about the Caribbean?" I glanced at Mrs. Williams, still sleeping peacefully. "Things are complicated with adults sometimes." "My dad says that too. Usually when I ask why he and Mom are fighting." Tommy put down his game. "Can I tell you something else?" "Of course. When I was being wheeled into surgery, I was super scared, like pee my pants scared, except I couldn't because of that catheter thing." He wrinkled his nose at the memory. "But then you came in and told me about how you were going to fix my heart, and you weren't scared at all. You said you'd take care of me like I was your own kid." I remembered that moment, leaning down to reassure a terrified boy before anesthesia took him under. "And that made me not scared anymore," Tommy continued, "because I could tell you meant it. So if your fiancé doesn't see how awesome you are, then maybe her heart needs fixing too. But not by you." I stared at him, momentarily speechless. This kid who'd faced mortality at an age when most are worried about school dances and video games had somehow cut through all my confusion with perfect clarity. "When did you get so wise?" I finally asked. He grinned. "Nearly dying gives you perspective, man." I laughed, ruffling his hair. "I'll take that under advisement." Mrs. Williams stirred at the sound of our voices. "David, is everything all right?" "Everything's fine," I assured her. Just checking in on my favorite patient. Who's been giving the nurses a hard time about his walking regimen? She added with a pointed look at her son. Walking is boring, Tommy protested. Walking is how you get out of here sooner, I countered. Tell you what, tomorrow I'll walk with you, and you can tell me all about whatever game you're playing there. Tommy's face lit up. For real? You actually want to hear about Celestial Conflict 7? Every dramatic detail, I promised, standing to leave. But for now, get some rest. As I turned to go, Tommy called after me. Dr. Hart? For what it's worth, I'd pick you right away. No month needed. The next week passed in a blur of surgeries, rounds, and administrative meetings about the potential new pediatric cardiac center. Chloe's messages grew increasingly terse, then stopped altogether. I knew I should call her, have a proper conversation about where we stood, but every time I considered it, I found a reason to delay. The truth was, her silence had brought a peculiar peace I wasn't ready to disturb. Bernard Livingston became a surprising mentor, inviting me to collaborate on complex cases and introducing me to potential donors for the pediatric cardiac program. The work was challenging and fulfilling in a way that made the days fly by. Tommy Williams continued to recover remarkably well. True to my word, I walked the hospital corridors with him daily, listening to his elaborate explanations of video game lore while monitoring his increasing stamina. On one such walk, we ran into Vanessa coming off her shift. Well, look at you, Tommy, she exclaimed. Practically racing now? Dr. Hart says I might go home next week if I keep it up, he said proudly. That's fantastic news. She turned to me. Speaking of news, have you heard the latest hospital gossip? I groaned. Do I want to know? Probably not, but I'm telling you anyway. Her eyes sparkled mischievously. Your fiancé was spotted having dinner with James Wilson at Le Bernardin last night. The name hit me like a bucket of ice water. James Wilson was a notorious cardiothoracic surgeon from our rival hospital across town. Brilliant, arrogant, and known for pursuing wealthy, connected women who could advance his career. Who's James Wilson? Tommy asked, looking between us curiously. Just another doctor, I said, my voice tight. A doctor who's been trying to steal Dr. Hart's job for years, Vanessa added, and apparently now his fiancée too. Vanessa, I warned, nodding toward Tommy. Sorry, she mouthed, then addressed Tommy. Ready to head back to your room? I heard they're serving chocolate pudding today. Tommy looked disappointed but nodded. Will you still come by later, Dr. Hart? Mom's bringing my PlayStation. Wouldn't miss it, I assured him, watching as Vanessa helped him back toward his room. Once they were gone, I leaned against the wall, trying to process this new information. Chloe and James Wilson. In some ways, it made perfect sense. He was exactly the kind of polished, ambitious man she would appreciate. The strange thing was how little jealousy I felt. Mostly I was just tired. Tired of the games, the calculations, the constant evaluation of worth. My pager buzzed. Bernard wanted to see me. Pushing thoughts of Chloe aside, I headed to his office. David, good, he said when I entered. I was hoping to catch you before you left. I've just come from a board meeting. He gestured for me to sit. The Pediatric Cardiac Center has been approved. Full funding, additional staff, everything we asked for. That's incredible news, I said, genuinely excited. They want you to lead it. Bernard leaned forward. It's yours if you want it, David. But I should warn you, it would mean more responsibility, more hours, at least initially, more hours. The words hung in the air. Just a month ago, those words would have filled me with dread, knowing how Chloe would react. When do they need my answer? I asked. End of next week. Bernard studied me. Is there a problem? I thought you'd be thrilled. I am, I assured him. It's just personal complications. Understanding dawned in his eyes. Ah, the fiancé issue. At my surprised look, he chuckled. Hospital gossip. Impossible to escape. Apparently, I muttered, can I offer some unsolicited advice from someone who's been married for 40 years? I nodded, curious. My wife is a concert pianist, Bernard said. When we were young, she traveled constantly. I worked 100-hour weeks as a surgical resident. We saw each other maybe 4 days a month that first year. How did you make it work? By understanding what we were building together wasn't just about us being physically present. It was about supporting each other's purpose. He leaned back. Anyone who sees your dedication to patience as a failing rather than the core of who you are isn't seeing you, David. They're seeing an inconvenience to their plans. His words struck uncomfortably close to my own recent thoughts. Take the weekend, he continued. Think about what you really want, for the center and for yourself. Then give me your answer on Monday. I left his office with my mind racing, barely noticing where I was walking until I found myself in front of the hospital chapel. Though not particularly religious, I stepped inside, drawn by its quiet emptiness. I sat in the last pew, staring at the simple stained glass window depicting healing hands. In the stillness, I finally allowed myself to confront the truth I'd been avoiding for weeks, perhaps years. Chloe and I were fundamentally incompatible, not because she valued financial success while I didn't. I appreciated what money could provide as much as anyone, but because we defined success in completely different terms. For her, success was measured in acquisitions, property, status, connections. For me, it was measured in the eyes of parents when I told them their child would live, in the renewed strength of a heart I'd repaired, in the potential of a pediatric center that could save countless young lives. My phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. A text from Chloe. We need to talk. Dinner tomorrow, 8 p.m., 11 Madison Park. Don't be late. No request, no question. A command delivered with the expectation of compliance. How had I never noticed that pattern before? I texted back, I'll be there. It was time to end the month early. 11 Madison Park glittered with understated luxury, the kind of place where the wealthy spoke in hushed tones and the staff moved like silent shadows. Chloe had chosen well, a public place that required composed behavior, yet exclusive enough that any scene would be devastating to one's social standing. She was already seated when I arrived, looking stunning in a black dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Her expression was carefully neutral as I sat across from her. You're on time, she noted, sounding almost disappointed. I expected surgery to make you late. I made sure to keep the evening clear, I said. You said we needed to talk. Yes. She took a deliberate sip of her martini. It's been 3 weeks since I gave you a month to consider our relationship. I've done my own reassessment during this time. I'm sure you have, I said, thinking of James Wilson. Her eyes narrowed slightly. What does that mean? Nothing. Please, continue. The waiter appeared and I ordered a scotch. Neat. Only after he departed did Chloe resume. I've realized that perhaps I was hasty in my approach, she said, her voice taking on the conciliatory tone she used when negotiating. We both invested too much time in this relationship to abandon it without proper consideration. 3 years, I agreed. That's a significant investment. Exactly. She reached across the table to touch my hand. We're both smart, successful people. We can adjust our parameters to make this work. Parameters? I've drawn up a proposal, she continued, apparently missing my tone. I think it addresses both our concerns. From her designer handbag, she produced a small leather portfolio and passed it to me. Inside was an actual printed document titled Relationship Restructuring Agreement. I stared at it in disbelief. You created a contract for our relationship? It's more of a framework, she corrected. It outlines expectations regarding time commitments, career priorities, social obligations, all the areas where we've experienced friction. I skimmed the document, feeling increasingly surreal. There were actual clauses about minimum quality time requirements, vacation allocations, and even a section about career-based emergency exceptions that limited how often I could cancel plans for surgeries. You'll notice I've been quite generous in the emergency provisions, she said, as if offering a tremendous concession. Up to 6 major schedule disruptions annually, provided they involve genuine, life-threatening situations. 6, I repeated flatly. That's 1 every 2 months, David. Surely other surgeons can cover beyond that. I closed the portfolio, and if I agree to these terms, her smile was triumphant. Then we move forward. The wedding planning resumes. We get back on track. And if there's a 7th emergency, A seventh child whose heart needs saving? Her smile faltered. Then we'd need to reevaluate whether this arrangement is sustainable. I took a long sip of my scotch, letting the burn ground me. Did you enjoy dinner with James Wilson last week? The question clearly caught her off guard. How did you, in a hospital gossip, impossible to escape? She recovered quickly. James and I had a business dinner. He's interested in some investment opportunities I've been developing. I'm sure he is. Don't be crude, David. It was purely professional. Like this? I tapped the portfolio. Is this how you see love, Chloe? As a business arrangement with terms and conditions? I see it as a partnership that requires clear expectations, she countered, her voice cooling. Something you've never seemed to grasp. You're right, I admitted, surprising her. I haven't grasped that. Because that's not what love is to me. Then what is it? Constant sacrifice? Martyrdom for the sake of strangers' children? It's supporting each other's purpose, I said, echoing Bernard's words. It's seeing someone's dedication as the core of who they are, not an inconvenience to your plans. Her expression hardened. Very poetic, but not very practical. I've been offered the directorship of a new pediatric cardiac center, I said, changing direction. It would mean more hours, more responsibility, at least initially. That's exactly what we don't need right now. Actually, it's exactly what I need. I pushed the portfolio back toward her. I'm going to take the position, Chloe. She stared at me, realization dawning. This is your answer, then? You're choosing your career over us? No, I'm choosing a life where I don't have to count emergencies or have my worth evaluated on a monthly basis. I removed the engagement ring from my pocket. I'd been carrying it for days, knowing this moment would come, and placed it beside the portfolio. I'm choosing to end our investment period early. You can't be serious, she hissed, keeping her voice low despite her obvious anger. After everything we've built? What have we built exactly? I asked, genuinely curious. A relationship where love is measured in ROI? Where children's lives are inconveniences to be limited to 6 per year? You'll regret this, she said, her composure cracking. Do you think you'll find someone who accepts your impossible schedule? Who understands your world the way I do? I hope I find someone who doesn't need to understand it. Just respect that it's important. She laughed bitterly. Good luck with that fantasy. I stood, dropping enough cash on the table to cover the drinks. Goodbye, Chloe. I wish you and James the best with your investment opportunities. As I walked away, she called after me, just loud enough for nearby tables to hear. 3 weeks instead of a month. At least you're efficient with your failure. I kept walking, each step lighter than the last. The hospital cafeteria was nearly empty when I arrived the next morning, my head surprisingly clear despite the sleepless night that had followed my dinner with Chloe. I nursed a cup of coffee, reviewing surgical notes for the day's procedures, when someone slid into the seat across from me. You look terrible, Vanessa observed cheerfully, setting down her own coffee. Like you haven't slept in days. Thank you for that assessment, I replied dryly. Word on the floor is that you and Finance Barbie are officially done. She studied me. True? Hospital gossip strikes again, I muttered. Yes, it's true. She sipped her coffee, watching me over the rim. You don't seem particularly devastated. Is that why you're here? To see me wallow in post-breakup misery? Partially, she admitted with a grin, but also to tell you that Tommy Williams is being discharged today. His parents are throwing a little celebration in his room. He asked if you'd come. Of course, I said, checking my watch. What time? 11. And David? Her expression softened. For what it's worth, I think you made the right call with Chloe. You deserve someone who gets you, the whole you. Before I could respond, her pager buzzed. She checked it and stood. Duty calls. See you at Tommy's party? I'll be there. As she walked away, I noticed a familiar figure enter the cafeteria. A woman with auburn hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, wearing the white coat of the pediatric oncology department. She was focused on her phone, not watching where she was going, and nearly collided with another doctor. Amy, I said, too quietly for her to hear across the room. Amy Winters, the woman I'd once thought I'd marry, before distance and ambition and Chloe had intervened. The woman my sister had just mentioned at my mother's birthday dinner. What was she doing here, thousands of miles from Seattle? I stood, meaning to approach her, when my own pager went off. Bernard, asking to see me immediately about the pediatric center position. By the time I looked up again, Amy was gone, making me wonder if I'd imagined her entirely. Shaking off the strange moment, I headed to Bernard's office. "David, good," he said when I entered. "I know I said you had until Monday, but some developments have accelerated our timeline. The board wants an answer today." "Yes," I said without hesitation. Bernard blinked. "Just like that? No more personal complications to consider?" "None whatsoever." A slow smile spread across his face. "Excellent. Then let me introduce you to someone." He pressed his intercom. "Send her in, please." The door opened, and I froze in shock. Amy Winters walked in, looking just as surprised to see me. "David," she said, her familiar voice sending a jolt through me. "You two know each other?" Bernard asked, looking between us. "We went to medical school together," Amy explained, recovering more quickly than I had. "It's been years." 6 years, I said, finding my voice. "What are you doing in New York?" "I thought you were in Seattle." "I was," she confirmed, "until last month. I've accepted a position here as head of pediatric oncology." Bernard was watching our exchange with undisguised interest. "Well, this is serendipitous. Dr. Winters will be working closely with the Pediatric Cardiac Center, particularly on cases involving both cardiac and oncological concerns. As director, you'd be collaborating frequently." "Director?" Amy's eyebrows rose. "Congratulations, David. That's incredible." "I just accepted," I said, still trying to process her presence. "Perfect timing then," Bernard said, standing. "I have a board meeting to attend." "Why don't you two catch up? I'm sure you have plenty to discuss." He headed for the door, then paused. "Oh, and David, Tommy Williams' discharge celebration is at 11. Thought you'd want to know." After he left, Amy and I stood in awkward silence. "So," she finally said, "Director of Pediatric Cardiac Surgery. Always knew you'd do amazing things." "What happened to Seattle?" I asked. "You loved it there." She shrugged, moving to sit in one of the visitor chairs. "The program changed. New administration, different priorities. Less focus on patient care, more on publications and prestige." I sat beside her rather than behind Bernard's desk. "That doesn't sound like you." "It wasn't me. Not anymore." She smiled softly. "Plus, my dad's health hasn't been great. He's here in New York, so—" "I'm sorry to hear that. How is he?" "Stable, for now." She studied me. "What about you? Last I heard, you were engaged to some finance wizard. Celia, Carly." "Chloe," I corrected. "And as of last night, that's over." "Oh." Her expression was carefully neutral. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." It was long overdue. Another silence fell between us, this one charged with unasked questions. "Remember that coffee shop near the medical library?" she finally said. "The one with the terrible espresso but amazing scones?" "Javier's," I nodded, smiling at the memory. "We practically lived there during finals week." "I found one just like it 2 blocks from here," she said. "Same awful coffee, same life-changing pastries. Some things never change. And some things do," she said quietly, her eyes meeting mine. "Sometimes for the better." "Dr. Hart?" A nurse appeared in the doorway. "Sorry to interrupt, but Tommy Williams is asking for you. Says it's urgent." I stood immediately. "Is he okay?" "Medically, yes, but he's quite insistent." I turned to Amy. "I'm sorry, I need to—" "Go," she said, understanding in her eyes. "Your patient needs you. Would you—" I hesitated, suddenly nervous in a way I hadn't been since residency. "Would you like to get coffee sometime? Catch up properly?" Her smile was the same one I'd remembered for 6 years. "I'd like that very much. How about tomorrow? I know a place with terrible espresso." "It's a date," I said, then caught myself. "I mean—" "I know what you mean," she replied, her eyes twinkling. "Now go see your patient." Tommy Williams was sitting on his bed, fully dressed in street clothes when I arrived, looking impatient. "Finally!" he exclaimed when he saw me. What took you so long? I came as soon as I heard it was urgent, I said, looking around for his parents. Where's your mom and dad? Getting the car. But that's not important. He lowered his voice conspiratorially. Did you break up with your calculating fiancé? I stared at him, baffled. How did you? Nurse Vanessa talks a lot when she thinks I'm asleep, he said with a shrug. So? Did you? Yes, I admitted, seeing no point in lying. Last night, his face split into a wide grin. Good, because I have something important to tell you before I leave, and it would have been awkward if you were still with someone who measures love like math homework. Tommy. No, listen, he interrupted, suddenly serious beyond his years. When I was really sick, before the surgery, I made a deal with the universe. I said if I survived, I'd try to make the world better somehow. Pay it forward, you know? I nodded, moved by his earnestness. So this is me, paying it forward. He took a deep breath. Dr. Hart, you saved my life, literally fixed my broken heart. And I think maybe the universe wants me to help fix yours too, the emotional one. I couldn't help but smile. Is that so? Yes, he said firmly. When people who save lives every day get told they're not worth it, the universe gets mad, like cosmic justice mad. Cosmic justice, I already repeated, charmed by his perspective. Exactly. So I'm telling you, as someone who wouldn't be alive without you, that you're worth everything. And whoever doesn't see that doesn't deserve you. The simple conviction in his voice hit me with unexpected force. Thank you, Tommy. You're welcome. He glanced toward the door. Also, that doctor who just started here, the pretty one with the red hair who works with cancer kids? Nurse Vanessa says you two used to date in doctor school. Medical school, I corrected automatically. And how does Vanessa even know that? He shrugged. She knows everything. But anyway, Vanessa thinks you should ask her out. For cosmic justice. I laughed, shaking my head. Is there anything that doesn't get discussed on the pediatric floor? Nope, he said cheerfully. Oh, and one more thing. His expression turned serious again. After I get better, can I come back and volunteer here? I want to help other kids who are scared like I was. The request caught me off guard. You want to volunteer? Yeah, I could play games with them, tell them it's going to be okay, that being scared is normal. You know, stuff that would have helped me. Something tightened in my chest, a feeling I couldn't immediately name. I think that's a wonderful idea, Tommy. We'd be lucky to have you. Cool, he said, just as his parents appeared at the door with a wheelchair. There's my ride. Don't forget what I said, Dr. Hart, about being worth everything. As I watched them leave, Mrs. Williams turned back to mouth a silent thank you over her son's head, her eyes bright with tears of gratitude. In that moment, I identified the feeling in my chest. Fulfillment. Not the fleeting satisfaction of buying something expensive or impressing someone at a social gathering, but the deep, lasting fulfillment of having genuinely mattered in someone's life. No investment portfolio could ever match that return. The following morning, I sat in a small coffee shop 2 blocks from the hospital, nervously checking my watch. The place was exactly as Amy had described, slightly shabby, with mismatched furniture and the rich scent of pastries battling with the acrid smell of over-roasted coffee. The bell above the door jingled, and there she was, hair loose today, wearing jeans and a simple blue sweater that brought out her eyes. She spotted me and smiled, making her way to my table. Sorry I'm late, she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Got caught up with a new patient consult. No problem, I assured her. I ordered you a latte and a blueberry scone. Still your favorites? Surprise and pleasure flickered across her face. You remembered. Some things are hard to forget, I said simply. A comfortable silence settled between us as the barista brought her coffee. Despite the years apart, being with Amy felt natural, like returning to a favorite book and finding the pages exactly as you remembered them. So, she said finally, tell me about this pediatric cardiac center you'll be directing. As I described the vision Bernard and I had developed, Amy listened with genuine interest, asking insightful questions and offering her own perspective on interdepartmental collaboration. The conversation flowed effortlessly from work to our families, to mutual medical school friends we'd kept in touch with. Your sister Sarah still hates me for that time I beat her at beer pong at your graduation party, doesn't she? Amy asked with a laugh. Absolutely, I confirmed, though she may forgive you now that she knows you're back in New York. You told her about me? She actually mentioned you recently before I knew you were here. I hesitated, then decided on honesty. She said I never looked truly happy with Chloe. Not the way I did with you. Amy's eyes softened. And what did you say to that? Nothing at the time. But she was right. I took a deep breath. The truth is, Amy, ending things with you was the biggest mistake I ever made. I told myself long distance was too hard, that what Chloe and I had made more sense logistically. But I was wrong. David, I know it's been years, I continued, needing to get the words out. I know we're different people now. But being here with you, it feels like no time has passed at all. And I wanted you to know that. She reached across the table, her fingers lightly touching mine. What if I told you I came to New York partly because I heard you were here? I stared at her, stunned. What? I ran into Dr. Livingston at a conference in Chicago 6 months ago, she explained. He mentioned your name, said you were doing incredible work. When the position here opened up, I couldn't help thinking it might be, I don't know, fate? A second chance? You never struck me as someone who believed in fate, I said, a smile tugging at my lips. Maybe I've changed, she replied, her hand still resting on mine. Or maybe nearly losing my dad made me realize life's too short not to take chances on the things that matter. And what matters to you, Amy? Her eyes held mine steadily. Connection, purpose, making a difference. Being with someone who understands that saving a life sometimes means missing a dinner reservation. Someone who sees that as a feature, not a bug. My chest tightened with something like hope. Sounds like you've given this some thought. 6 years worth, she admitted with a small smile. What about you, David? What matters to you? I thought of Tommy Williams and his parents, of Bernard's 40-year marriage to his pianist wife, of my mother's birthday dinner and the simple joy of being present for the people who truly mattered. Being worth it, I said finally. Not because of what I earn or where I vacation, but because of who I am and what I do. Being with someone who doesn't need a month to figure that out. Amy's smile widened. Well, for what it's worth, I figured it out in about 5 minutes yesterday. That's a significant improvement on Chloe's timeline, I laughed. I've always been efficient, she said, her eyes dancing with humor and something warmer. So, what do you think? Are we crazy to even consider trying again after all this time? I turned my hand to clasp hers properly. Probably. But as a certain wise 14-year-old recently told me, sometimes the universe gets involved in matters of cosmic justice. Cosmic justice? She repeated, amused. Sounds serious. Very serious, I agreed solemnly. Almost as serious as asking if you'd like to have dinner with me tonight. A proper date. I'd like that very much, she said, her fingers tightening around mine. But fair warning, if you get called away for an emergency surgery, I'll understand completely. Even if it means canceling at the last minute. Even then, she assured me, some things are worth waiting for. As we sat there, hands linked across the table in a shabby coffee shop with terrible espresso and life-changing scones, I finally understood what Chloe had never grasped. Love wasn't an investment with guaranteed returns. It was a leap of faith, taken again and again, day after day. It was choosing someone not because they fit neatly into your 5-year plan, but because they made that plan worth having in the first place. Chloe had given me a month to prove my worth. In the end, I'd needed much less time than that to realize I'd been measuring my life by the wrong metrics all along. A month, I murmured, shaking my head at the memory. What was that? Amy asked. I smiled, squeezing her hand. Nothing important. Just thinking about how sometimes the best investments are the ones you can't calculate. In the distance, my pager buzzed with a new notification. Without hesitation, Amy released my hand. Go, she said with understanding in her eyes. Save a life. I'll be here when you get back.